The moment my daughter screamed, I knew our lives would never be the same. It was her 10th birthday, and the house still smelled of vanilla frosting and melted candles. Balloons floated against the ceiling, pink and gold ribbons curling down like careless smiles. My mother-in-law stood near the dining table, watching as Emma carefully unwrapped the last gift, a small silver box tied with a pale blue ribbon. "It's something special," she had said earlier, her lips stretched into a smile that never quite reached her eyes. I remember how the room felt too warm, how the air seemed heavy when Emma lifted the lid. Inside was a delicate pendant with a crystal center that shimmered strangely under the lights. Emma held it up, laughing softly. Then she froze. The laughter died in her throat. "Mom. My eyes. I can't see anything." Her voice cracked into panic. The pendant slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a sharp metallic sound. She clutched her face, stumbling backward into the table. I rushed to her, my heart pounding so violently I could barely hear myself think. Her pupils looked unfocused, darting blindly. My husband didn't hesitate, he grabbed his keys and carried her outside while I stood frozen for a second too long. My mother-in-law whispered, "It must be an allergy," but her hands trembled. As the car disappeared down the street, I bent to pick up the pendant. It felt unusually warm in my palm. The house was unbearably silent after they left. The decorations now looked mocking, as if the celebration had been a cruel joke. I stared at the pendant under the kitchen light. The crystal center wasn't just reflective, it had faint hairline cracks inside, like veins. When I tilted it, a subtle shimmer passed through it, almost like a pulse. I told myself it was just fear playing tricks on me. Still, I wrapped it in a napkin and placed it inside a drawer. Minutes stretched into an hour. I kept replaying the scene in my mind. Emma had been perfectly fine all day. She had eaten cake, laughed with friends, blown out her candles. Nothing unusual until she opened that box. My phone buzzed. It was my husband. His voice sounded tight. "They're running tests," he said. "Her eyes are physically fine, but she keeps saying everything is dark." Before I could ask more, he added, "I'm coming back home for something." Something? My stomach twisted. When the front door finally opened, I ran toward him, but I stopped cold. 2 police officers stepped in behind him. My husband wouldn't meet my eyes. One officer asked calmly, "Ma'am, can you show us the gift your daughter received tonight?" My knees felt weak. "Why?" I whispered. The officer exchanged a look with my husband. "Because," he said, "this isn't the first time we've seen something like this." The room felt colder than it had all evening. And suddenly, I realized my mother-in-law had left without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking as I led the officers to the kitchen drawer. I kept telling myself there had to be a simple explanation: faulty material, chemical residue, anything but what they were implying. I unwrapped the pendant carefully and placed it on the table. One officer pulled on gloves before touching it. The other asked when exactly Emma began losing her vision. Seconds after she looked at it, I said, my throat tight. She held it up under the chandelier. The officer nodded slowly, then turned off the kitchen lights and asked me to switch on only the overhead fixture above the table. When the light hit the crystal, something strange happened. A faint prismatic flare burst outward, sharper than before, scattering thin beams in narrow lines. "There," the officer murmured. He angled it slightly, and for a split second, I had to squint. It wasn't bright in a normal way, it was concentrated, like a magnifying lens focusing sunlight. My stomach dropped. "We've had 2 reports in the past year," he said quietly. Decorative objects designed to intensify light into a focused beam. Temporary retinal flash blindness. In children. My breath caught. Designed? I repeated. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, "Who gave this to your daughter?" The words felt heavy. My mother-in-law. My husband finally spoke, voice strained. Mom ordered it online last month. She said it was handmade. The officer placed the pendant into an evidence bag. We need her contact information. That's when I realized none of us knew where she was tonight. She had left right after the ambulance. No calls. No messages. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. This wasn't just a defective gift. Someone had crafted this to do exactly what it did. The hospital room smelled sterile and sharp when we returned. Emma lay in bed, eyes open but unfocused, her small hands gripping the blanket. It's still dark, she whispered when she heard my voice. I kissed her forehead, fighting tears. The doctor explained that her retinas showed signs of intense light exposure but no permanent structural damage. We believe it's temporary, he said. With rest, her vision should gradually return. Temporary. The word felt fragile. Hours later, an officer stepped into the hallway to update us. They had traced the online purchase. The seller account was fake, created weeks before and deleted hours after Emma's party began. The shipping address traced back to a warehouse used for short-term rentals. It was deliberate. My husband looked shattered. Why would anyone do this, he muttered. I thought about my mother-in-law's expression when Emma opened the box, not excitement, not joy. Anticipation. But then another detail surfaced in my mind. She hadn't handed Emma the gift directly. It had arrived by courier that afternoon, already wrapped. She had only insisted that Emma open it last. The officer confirmed something else. The previous 2 incidents involved packages sent anonymously to families hosting public birthday posts online. My breath left me slowly. I had posted Emma's party countdown on social media for weeks. Photos. Decorations. The theme. The date and time. Anyone could have known. The police expanded their investigation into a pattern of targeted deliveries. Days later, Emma's vision began to return in faint shapes and shadows, then colors. When she finally saw me clearly again, she cried into my arms. The pendant had been engineered to weaponize light, but it was our visibility that had made us vulnerable. I deleted every public post that night. And as the investigation continued, I understood one terrifying truth: sometimes the danger doesn't come from inside the family, it watches from the outside, waiting for the perfect moment to shine.